Hi, my name is Tatiana Sholokova. I'm a photographer, and this is my online lecture about color in photography. Let's get started soon. I want to make you fall in love with this topic to show you all the possibilities for a conscious work with color. It will be a very inspiring lecture, and I'm sure it will inspire you to create stunning photos on a new level. So, to begin with, you need to understand one basic truth. Color is the sensation a person experiences when light reflected from objects hits their eye. For example, we see light falling on an apple. The light is reflected from the surface of the apple onto the retina of the eye, and the retina has three types of receptors: red, green, and blue. Thanks to them, the light from the apple in our perception has color. From the retina, the information goes to our brain. The brain processes this information and we perceive this apple as red. Many people will think it's red, but at the same time, one particular color can cause different perceptions in different people, because there are several characteristics of how different people and animals are able to see color. That is, in rare case, a person may decide that this apple is not red. On the next slide, we see that there is vision with standard color perception, and there is vision with different deviations, which even have their own names. As a result, the same color can be perceived differently for each person. Therefore, it's useless to argue about what color is actually in any object. In the end, color is a completely subjective characteristic. It depends on physiological features and even on the mood, emotions, and memories of each individual person. Even twins with identical eyes can perceive color differently. The most important thing to understand is that your perception of color may not coincide with the perception of other people. Also, the perception of color in humans is different from the perception of color in other living organisms. For example, a cow perceives color in a completely different way than a human being, and each creature's color perception depends on its lifestyle and environment. I have a color perception test for you. You need to count how many shades you see here, how many lines you see. Here are the results. You can use them to determine your type of color perception. The standard is when you have three types of receptors in your eye: red, green, blue. But if you see less than 20 colors, you may only have two types of color-sensitive receptors in your eye. There is also the possibility that you may have four types of receptors, so you can see more colors. When I took this test, I detected 38 shades and I am a tetrachromatist. Try taking this test too. I wonder how many shades you will see. You can also find other tests and research your color perception. Going further, here is an interesting topic about the origin of color using physics as an example and its history and research. It may inspire you to use some effects on your shoots. So let's look at optical glasses. There is a transparent glasses like these. They have a special composition and are used to make various parts and optical instruments, for example, for eyeglasses or binoculars. Optical glass differs from technical glass in that optical glass has a special high transparency. They are characterized by purity, colorlessness, and uniformity. The different facets of optical glass are able to refract the light that comes through them. What does it mean? There are different kinds of optical glasses. They can have different shapes. And in some examples, we can see that these glasses can be used for taking pictures. You can take pictures through them, you can pass light through them, and then some interesting effects will appear on the surface. And as we can see, these effects will be colored, which is very interesting because glass has no color. It's pure, colorless, and transparent. But on the third picture on the left, we see that the light shines through transparent glass and different colored spots appear on the surface. Here is how photographers use these effects in their shoots. By shooting through optical glass with certain facets, you can multiply objects, change their size, or get color effects. Try shooting with optical glasses too. I wonder what you get. Why are we discussing this? Let me explain. Imagine there is such a thing as prism. A prism is, in other words, the same as optical glass. A prism is a glass body made of optical glass. It comes in different shapes, but we are interested in the shape of a triangle to discuss the topic of color. This is what it looks like. It has rectangular facets and it has triangles at its ends. And now I'm going to tell you how this thing came to be. In 1666, the scientist Newton conducted an experiment. He passed light through this transparent body in a dark room, and so, as a result of this, a colored rainbow of 7 primary colors. There are many shades here, but the main colors are exactly 7. Thus, since that moment, it's accepted to allocate 7 main colors, so we get an extra confirmation that color does not really exist. And the most important thing, thanks to what we see color, is light. Without light, we cannot see anything. Here are a couple of good examples of how the color changes depending on the light. Look at the right side of the picture. And we see that the green color is much lighter than in the left part. This is because there is more light on the right side and the object is in shadow on the left. We understand that the walls are equally painted in the same color, but because of different lighting, we see the same color differently. Somewhere it's darker, somewhere it's lighter. And it's the same story here. The same color has different shades depending on the degree of illumination. It's a proof that color is light. Knowing this, when shooting and processing, we understand that the color of our shot will depend on the light. Here we also see an example where there are lighter or darker spots. The color is the same and the spots are due to the light. And here we see a soft light falling on the model from the top left, and her dress is blue on the shoulders, but almost black on the bottom. In fact, the sleeves of the dress are a uniform blue color, but it looks different depending on the lighting. And here is the same story. Light also comes in different temperatures, from blue to orange, in other words, from cold to warm. And if you turn on halogen lamps in a white room, it will be yellow light, and we will see all objects in warm colors. And if you turn on incandescent lamps, they will give a cold shade and the walls will seem blue. Also, if you place a color filter in front of the light source, the light will be colored. When shooting, it's important to get the white balance right in the settings for the type of lighting you are using, and in processing you can adjust it to the best possible result. White balance is considered correct when you have all objects in their real colors. But if you are using color filters, such as red, the correct white balance will be the one where red looks the most natural. So we remembered that color is light, and now let's see how it looks in Photoshop when processed. Here we see the color tone line. That's analogous to Newton's rainbow. Then a scale for adjusting color saturation. And the brightness scale, which like lighting, can make the color darker or lighter. Using curves in Photoshop, we will also see a curve, thanks to which you can control the brightness in different areas, as well as color curves to adjust the hues in different areas. Curves is the most important panel in Photoshop for creating any color correction, and you will learn how to work with it in Lesson 5 about final color correction. Next, let's take a look at the Camera Raw interface. There are also settings for color brightness and hue control. You will also see similar settings in Capture One or Lightroom. Any program has these tools, and you will learn more about them from the lessons on processing. And knowledge from this lecture will allow you to consciously approach the choice of color in preparation for shooting, and on the shooting itself, and at the time of processing. You will be able to better understand what colors in the frame are the main, and what shade should be each color to make the photo look harmonious. For example, your main colors are blue sky and green grass, are depending on the weather, light and mood you can pick up the most successful shades and brightness in processing. Sometimes in the frame there is a color that does not fit in the frame, and then this color can be radically changed or removed from the frame. Let's go further and see what happened after Newton stated that color is light. Many scientists conducted their own experiments and investigated color. We will study color based on the research of Johannes Itten, who created the color wheel. It's the one that has become the most popular, and its patterns make a piece of art absolutely harmonious. So what do we see here? The most important thing is that there are 3 main colors: yellow, blue and red. These colors cannot be obtained with the help of any other colors. That is, you cannot mix something and get, for example, blue. And exactly the same with red and yellow. And if to mix these 3 colors with each other, for example, blue with yellow, it will receive green. Yellow with red will give orange color, and blue with red, violet. this mixing gives us 3 more main colors, and it turns out that there are only 6 main groups of color, and each of these 6 groups has a lot of different shades. By the way, if you mix 3 colors, yellow, red and blue, you get white. This again tells us that light is color and color is light. So we have 6 groups of colors, and we start learning about color schemes. Color combination schemes are an amazing, inspiring thing I want to tell you about. When you learn this and experience it, you won't be able to watch movies in peace. You will notice color combination schemes. This happens to me all the time, absolutely automatically. Let's take a look at 7 basic schemes. This will be quite enough to make the right decisions at the moment of color correction. On each of the schemes, I have indicated points of matching colors. For example, on the complementary scheme, we see 2 points, they are opposite each other. But you must realize that this line can be rotated. As a result, yellow is combined with the violet. But the line can turn, and no matter how it did not turn, the color opposite the other people will give us a harmonious combination. So, for example, on this scheme, orange perfectly combines with blue and red with green. Lines and points on other schemes can also shift and rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. You will quickly remember these patterns when you practice to recognize them, and your practice will begin with me right now. When you used to look at different pieces of art, you may not have understood why color seems so pleasing and harmonious to you. You may have intuitively thought it was beautiful, and now you will understand how it really works. And let's explore the first scheme. It's called monochrome, and it consists of one color, and it can have many shades of it. Here is a great example with the color orange and its many shades. And here we see only yellow color and its shades. And here again it's just the color yellow. Next is the complementary, or in other words, contrast scheme. This is a combination of 2 colors that are located opposite each other. For example, in these photos, we see the combination of green and red. Note that these colors are different in brightness. For example, in the photo on the right, the red is much more saturated and brighter than the green background color. In this case, it looks harmonious and the viewer's attention is drawn to the boots. It's a great technique because the boots in this photo are the main ones. And if the green color was saturated, the boots would not look so expressive and voluminous. In the photo on the left, our attention is taken by the red suit, and the rich green leaves perfectly complement the composition and attract attention to the lines. The background is turquoise in color, but it's very close to the green color, and that's a good thing too. Interesting point, this background in life could be blue, a cooler shade, but when processing it could be turquoise on purpose because this color is more like green. And red goes perfectly with green because it's complementary scheme. So that's why it's good to know about the patterns of color combination, because you can create a harmony of hues in your processing. Next option, I love these 2 colors, pink with light green. It's a contrasting combination too. It looks great. Again, I want to say that the shades of these colors could look different in real life. We don't always have the opportunity to match the color of a location or clothing so perfectly when shooting. And this house could have been yellow, for example, and when processing it was made light green, and it matches better with the pink color. Also, this photo could have been not so colorful originally, and the retoucher was able to make it that way. That's what we process photos for, to give the photos a finished look, to make them more expressive. Another example of a contrasting scheme, and again the combination of pink and green. This is the work of Guy Bourdin. He did an amazing job with colors and has some very inspiring fashion photos. Next, and here is how blue and orange go together. It looks absolutely excellent, real art. And here is all blue, but there is also a light beige color. Beige is a shade of orange, so it goes just as well with blue. And I'm pretty sure this colored beige background was not used here, and this colored beige spot was drawn for contrast, because it goes perfectly with the light beige color on the jeans. Next, here is an ad campaign using blue skies and walls, skin and boots in shades of orange. And here is a blue sky and orange clothing, but also there are black, gray and white colors. They are called achromatic colors. And the other colors are called chromatic. Here is just blue and orange. Here is an example where yellow against purple is a super bright combination. Here is with any other color scheme, proportion is important. If we take pure yellow and pure violet in same proportions, we might get a visually unpleasant result. But here we see saturated purple, a small piece of bright yellow color and a light yellow background. If the background were as saturated as the sweater, it would be painful for us to look at. Here are shots from the movie La La Land. We can see that there is a lot of purple and a little yellow accent. It's absolutely gorgeous, and that's where our attention is. I recommend you to watch my lecture about composition so that you understand how to place color spots in the frame in the most harmonious way. You should also understand an interesting thing. In color photography, we can influence the composition by using color spots. But if the photo is black and white, we can control the composition only by working with lines, shape and brightness. The third color scheme is analog. This is a combination of several colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. For example, here is a combination of yellow, orange and red. Note how beautiful and bright look small spots of rich red color on the contrast with the muted tones of yellow and orange. So moving on, another example of what an analog scheme can look like. Here we see a combination of colors blue, green and yellow. Yellow looks contrasting in relation to blue, but it's not a complementary scheme because for complete harmony there is also green color. It's the middle color between the blue and yellow and perfectly links them together in the frame. The next example, this is also a combination of green, blue and yellow, but less saturated and very elegant. Here is another photo in the same colors. Here is a great combination of rich dark green color with a light blue tint and light skin that looks contrasting on the background of the combination of green and blue. Next, colors, and this too is an analog scheme. Again, the light shade of purple contrasts against the bright and rich red-orange sand. It's absolutely beautiful when there is a contrast of light and dark, bright and faded, saturated and muted, but the color combination schemes are unchanging. The following scheme, the classic triad, and we see a popular combination again. It's red, blue and yellow. These are great examples. On the left we see a version in muted tones. In the right is a version with saturated tones. And I want to bring up the processing again and say that the sky originally might not have been that saturated and not that blue at all. But the retoucher could realize that here it's necessary to achieve a harmonious combination of blue, red and yellow, and that's why he made the sky like this. If the source of this photo fell into the hands of a beginner and he would just blindly apply a preset with a warm effect, as many people like, then perhaps the sky would have turned out turquoise and the grass and clothes beige and brown. Also, let me ask you a question. Do you think there could be a model with black hair in this photo? No, it's the blonde hair that is beautiful in this shot. It's the one with the texture that blends perfectly with the texture of the grass. So not only the retoucher could create the right harmony of shades, but the photographer and stylist also worked on this shot from the beginning. After all, the stylist also chose exactly the red clothes for this location, and no other color would have worked here as perfectly as red. We go further, and here we also see a combination of blue, yellow and red. Note that they look like three spots, but each color has different shades depending on how the light falls. Due to this, picture looks voluminous. The stylist who put this look together could have specifically matched the blue dress with the red hat and added a yellow accent. Speaking of which, I draw your attention to the fact that everything is not accidental and the creators of the frame can think about such little things. And here we see the combination of red, blue and yellow again, but the shades are quite different. They look delicate, not at all as contrasty and saturated as in the previous shot. The next example of this color scheme, pay attention, here yellow has a greenish tint and certain shades of red and blue are successfully matched to it. The blue here is very close to cyan, but if it were violet, these photos would not seem so harmonious and blue objects would not look so contrasting. When processing, the retouching could have specifically chosen these shades to achieve harmony. Let's continue studying the triad scheme. Here we see three colors: green jacket, orange wall and skin, and the purple accessory around his neck. The next scheme is also a triad, but it's unusual. The scheme is called contrast triad. In this scheme, two colors are placed opposite to one. In this photo, we have pink color and opposite to it two more colors, yellow and green. Here both photos have the same scheme but different shades of the primary colors. So you can see how the same scheme can appear differently in practice. In life, the green wall in the photo on the right could have been saturated and blue at all, but the retoucher could have chosen a more appropriate shade to harmonize with the coat. And on the photo on the left, the sky and water could have a pronounced blue color, but we don't need it here at all, and during processing it could be intentionally removed. In other words, to make the water more green and the sky more colorless. And here is an example of this scheme in a Warhol painting. Here we also see a combination of pink, yellow and blue, which is very close to green. And here is the same scheme, but with other colors. On the left we see saturated shades, on the right muted, but both photos have the same scheme of color combination. Next, let's consider square and rectangular schemes. Here, for example, is a beautiful advertising shot where all four colors are present and they go well together. And this small purple spot perfectly complements the three colors. Often we can see schemes of four colors in movies or in such complex photos where there is a lot of detail. And of course, here everything is stunningly balanced in both composition and color. It's easy for the viewer to perceive, as if exactly such colors in such shades should be here. And if we replace the blue suit with black, we will lose all the magic of this shot, and this is absolutely true. We see the same combination here, but the shades are light and muted. The pink wall is a lighter shade of red, and also we see here a light yellow, light blue and light green. And this photo wouldn't look so beautiful if, for example, the yellow wall was blue. Now let's look at the rectangular diagram. There are four colors here too, absolutely stunning combination of red and purple and a wonderful addition in the form of green and yellow combination. We can say that in rectangular schemes we combine two analog schemes and place them opposite each other. Here is, for example, analog combination of green and yellow and opposite analog combination of blue and violet. When processing, the retoucher can intentionally give the grass a yellow tint for such a harmonious combination. There are some services that can help you in your work. Here you can choose the colors that are in your photo, see the best options for their combination. And when processing, you will absolutely consciously work with each color and create this harmony in the frame. For example, in your photo there are four colors and you can try to use a rectangular scheme. We choose the colors that are in your photo. This allows us to see what kind of harmony we can bring the color combination in our photo too, and we just do that. In processing lessons, I often say that you don't need to do color at random. I want you to learn to understand why you make the decision to make the grass more yellow, the sky more purple, and so on. If you are preparing for a shoot and are thinking up an image, this service will be useful for you as well. Don't forget that the spot of any desired color we can get not only in the form of the object, but thanks to the light. Our next topic is color contrast. This is another technique by which we can make the color in our photos harmonious. This technique is a great addition to the knowledge of color combination schemes. Color contrast has several types. The first type is complementary contrast. Its principle is the same as the contrast scheme of color combination. Recall, these are two colors that are opposite each other in the color wheel. For example, purple and yellow, orange and blue, green and red, and others. Besides the fact that these are contrasting colors in relation to each other, they also have other types of contrast. For example, purple and yellow are contrasting colors because in the color wheel they are opposite each other. But it's also a contrast of light and dark. Purple is a pretty dark color, while yellow looks light and bright. Orange and blue are contrasting colors, but they have another contrast. They contrast of cool and warm. With any contrast, we can make the photo more interesting and draw attention to the main elements and make them more expressive. The next type is quantitative contrast. It appears between two objects in the frame, which are painted in different colors, have different mass in the frame. For example, here the boots fill a small part of the frame, but the background is a different color and it occupies a much larger area in the frame. The boots in this shot are a color accent. Similarly, the lips in the photo on the right are an accent color. These photos are impossible to imagine without these accents. They definitely play a big role here. Note that this is at the same time a complementary contrast. It's a combination of green and red, and also a contrast of saturated and muted color. In one photo can combine several types of contrast, and we see it on the example of these photos. Next, I will tell you about the types of contrast that are related to our vision. It will be like a test. The first kind is simultaneous contrast. This contrast appears only in our brain. You see only a yellow square in front of you and there is no other color. And the trick is that when the brain recognizes the yellow color, it tries to find a second complementary color. In this case, it does not find it, so it starts to color it itself. Let's do an experiment. You need to look at a small white square inside a yellow square for a while. Stop this video and try to look without looking away. How's that? As a reminder, the complementary color to yellow is purple. So if you have standard sight without any peculiarities, your white square has taken on a violet hue. This may not be widely applicable in photography, but in graphic design this knowledge is useful. If a graphic designer writes yellow text on a white background or purple text on a black background, the effect can be quite heavy and unpleasant to see. For illustrators, this knowledge is also very important. In Neaton's book, there was a case like this. The director of a textile factory producing textiles for ties noticed that a certain batch of ties had not been sold for a long time. Later, he found out that in fact they were red ties with black stripes. Eventually, they looked at them and realized that many people perceived this black color as green. It was an unpleasant effect for eyesight, so such ties were not bought. The next kind is border contrast. It's two similar colors next to each other, and if we look into the line of junction of these colors, we can see lines of other shades. Try such an experiment. Next is the sequential contrast. If you look at a red spot for 30 seconds and then shift your gaze to a white area, you will see the same spot but of a different complementary color. In this case, some see green, some see blue. I personally see blue, just such a bright, saturated blue. The next look is the contrast of warm and cold. I already mentioned it, but let's take a closer look at this look. This photo is a great example to explore this type. Cold colors we always perceive as something distant, and here the background just seems to us as far away as possible, and warm colors, on the contrary, as something close. Here we see them in the skin of the models, and they are really in the foreground, so the photo looks voluminous. It's the contrast of color and contrast of warm and cold helped to divide the frame into different plans and achieve such volume. Here are more variants of volume by working with color and its brightness. Bright backgrounds seem very distant and in the background, while bright dark silhouettes, on the contrary, look very close. This is such a pattern, and the degree of distance between the background and the objects in the foreground depends on how strong the contrast between them is. Such photos always look very expressive, voluminous, and deep. Let's look at other examples. Their difference is that there is a dark background and light silhouettes, and we perceive the light silhouettes as something closer and the dark background as something distant. It's as if the lighter parts of the picture have been hit by the lighting because they are close, and the elements that have been hit by less light look darker. Now let's talk about black and white photography. Here we have two tonal options. The first option is a light tonality. It's characterized by gray and pure white tones. Dark or black spots can be only accents in the form of small spots or thin lines. In light tonality, you cannot shoot anything. For example, we cannot shoot a black cat on a black background. We can shoot something light against a light background. For example, a light-haired girl in a light background. And the second option is a dark tone. Here most of the photo is dark. Black and white photography has a couple of secrets. Knowing about them will help you to avoid such a situation where you randomly decided just to make the photo black and white because you had difficulty working with color. Beginners often make this mistake. The first, the success of a black and white photo is ensured if there is a contrast in brightness in the frame, for example, light skin of the model on a dark background. Second, the image can tell us about what is happening in three languages: color, shape, and lines. When we remove color, only shape and lines remain, and it's their successful combination that will produce any effect in the viewer. Sometimes we don't have the right to remove color because without it, the meaning of the image is lost. Most stunning color photos will be absolutely nothing in black and white, and on the contrary, all successful black and white photos are absolutely complete and don't need coloring. Now I invite you to look at the work of artists, filmmakers, and photographers and find the patterns you now know about. Painting and cinema are older arts than photography, so photography sort of learns and borrows that knowledge from the painting and movie industry. That's why when you are looking for references and inspiration for your shoots, you can look at different pieces of art. In films, pick up on light and color. In paintings, so too the combination of colors, and sculpture can inspire you for poses for your models. Everything in this world can be an inspiration, so explore the beauty that surrounds you. And the knowledge I have given you about color and composition will allow you not just to look, but to analyze and understand why a piece of art is so expressive and appealing. Let's begin our study with paintings. Van Gogh. On the left, we see a field with green grass, blue sky, yellow flowers. It's all an analog combination of three colors. And on the right is a completely yellow picture, and we realize that is a monochrome combination. This is what you and I have been studying, and it's these patterns that are very clearly visible in the artist's work. Next, Salvador Dali. In the center is an analog combination, red, orange, and yellow. On the left is a contrasting combination of blue and orange. In the works of Andy Warhol, we can also see that the colors in his paintings are not random. For example, on the photo on the left is a rectangular scheme where red is combined with purple and green with yellow. And here are the works of Pablo Picasso. There is quite a lot of color in his works, but if we start to take it apart, we will always find certain patterns. You can be inspired and use the combination of colors in paintings to create your photos. For example, you like the combination of colors in the picture on the left, and you can use it in your photos. And here are Mark Rothko's works. In the painting in the center, for example, I see a combination of purple and yellow and blue and orange. And on the right is an analog scheme. Next is Claude Monet, stunning combination of pink and green on the right, and the combination of red, blue and yellow in the painting on the left. Jasper Johns, try now to see for yourself the color combination schemes you see here. Amedeo Modigliani is interested in the color and shape of his models. Remember that you can be inspired by different elements in different types of art. In your shot, you can have makeup inspired by a flower and the shape by Amedeo Modigliani, while you can shoot it with a super wide-angle lens inspired by a modern fashion photographer. Next up is Kazimir Malevich. In his works, we see patches of pure color, so he is very useful to study. Henri Matisse, I also recommend him for studying color. When you look at a piece of art, try to ask yourself, what kind of photo does this painting, movie, sculpture inspire me to do? Here is another unusual artist, Roy Lee. His works are imitations of comic books. They also have spots of pure color, and it's very interesting to study. Ernst Ludwig Kirchner. Here, for example, on the left is a stunning combination, blue, violet, red. It's definitely an analog scheme. And so on Juan Miró. On the right, for example, is analog combination of green, yellow and blue. And here is Yves Klein, just one color and an accent on the shape. Marc Chagall. On the left we see a combination of red and purple and yellow and green. Next, let's look at the photos of famous photographers. I will show you exactly those photographers who are known for their rich colors. This is the case when in their works color is very important, and in black and white they would lose their meaning. The first one is, of course, Miles Aldrich. His photos want to look at and just enjoy to bold combination of bright colors. This is a perfect example of when we see a lot of color but our eyes are quite comfortable. David LaChapelle is love. He has shot all the Hollywood celebrities, and his color is also so very skillfully used, exactly in such a way that the viewers is taken aback by such glamour of kitsch and pathos. Steve McCurry is an American photojournalist, also characterized by his vibrant color. Interesting in that he uses it in documentary photography, whereas scenes can be very different and not at all glamorous like the previous photographers. In general, I have seen more black and white photography in photojournalism and less color photography, so that's what makes Steve McCurry interesting. Sarah Moon is an amazing photographer, and her fashion work, which looks like paintings, is still in demand today. Alex Webb is a street photographer who used to shoot in black and white. Then he had a period when he went into a creative crisis. He was missing something in his work. He decided to use color, and he was right. I told you that some images don't work without color. I think that's Alex's case. His work really became super cool with the advent of color. So later is also a street photographer. By the way, about street photographer, you can take a shot every day and it will develop you. You don't have to organize an elaborate shoot every day. You can just take your camera phone with you and be attentive on the street and notice some interesting color combinations. I hope that after this lecture you will really start to do it, if you don't already do it. Moreover, these same photos can then become part of your mood board for a big shoot, where sunset colors, for example, will be the inspiration for the image. Then Harry Gruyer and his beautiful combination of yellow, blue and red in the photo on the right, for example. Ernst Haas, incredible combination of yellow and purple. Next, Konstantin Manos, unreal beautiful analog combination of red, purple and pink in the photo on the left. David Alan Harvey, we only have one color in the photo on the left and right, but it looks amazing. Next, I will recommend a few films where it's useful to explore color. Usually viewers are only interested in the script and the story, and if the script is uninteresting or incomprehensible to a particular viewer, the movie seems uninteresting. But movies can be watched not only for the script. For example, you can now analyze color and composition. And a person who understands psychology, for example, will be able to watch the film and analyze the characters and behavior of characters. The first movie is Hotel Grand Budapest, and we see on the left what we talked about in this lecture, the contrast of warm and cold, the combination of blue and orange. In this case, the street of cold blue color seems distant to us, and the characters on warm orange light falls, on the contrary, are very close to the viewer. And on the photo on the right is my favorite analog combination of red and purple. Basketball Diary. When I was looking at that scene where he's running through the field of flowers, I was very inspired. It's such a beautiful combination. Green grass, pink flowers, naked body, and the sky with blue, pink and purple hues. Catch Me If You Can, stunning combination of pink and orange. And the scene shot has a very nice combination of yellow and purple and is complemented by the color blue, and the standard contrasting combination of blue and orange on the right. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Even if you have already watched these movies, watch them again, but with new knowledge. Because before you could watch or not see any patterns of color combination and not understand why the curtains in a storefront are green, for example. Freedom, very bright, saturated colors and a stunning combination of different prints. Next, Lawrence Anyways, a beautiful movie with many scenes with rich color accents. Great Beauty, the film is interesting to study in many ways, including in terms of composition. Next up is Crimson Peak. The costumes here are stunning and of course the detailed work with color is beautiful. Life of Pi, there are a lot of shots with analog or monochrome scheme. Next up is Spring Breakers, a light comedy but with a good deep meaning and beautiful colors. Inside Llewyn Davis, a very nice movie, sometimes funny and at the same time sad movie. The colors are quite interesting, they seem to be calm, but periodically there are bright saturated color spots. Next up is the Fargo series. For me, the second season is most notable for its colors, but in general, the series is very interesting. In the second season, the main characters constantly drive a blue car, and it goes so well with the different backgrounds in this series, most often with orange. Why Women Kill, this series feels like a continuation of the Rapture of Miles Aldrich's work, so many rich, bright, totally different colors. Here, a movie that has a rich red color in almost every frame, and it's a lot of fun to watch. The Dreamers, there are a lot of interesting poses here in addition to the nice film color correction, and this is something you can also pick up on for yourself and your future shoots. And the movie Emily rounds out our selection. My advice for watching movies: take screenshots of the moments you like. Later, you can use them as references for inspiration. For example, once I was shooting a commercial, and the references for the lighting were shots from the movie Hotel Grand Budapest. Next, I want to recommend you some apps that help you develop your color perception. Pantone. This is the Institute of Color Studies, and every year they announce the color of the year. Next, I love Hue. It's a game for color perception. Color Wheel. It's a color wheel, and you can use it as a prompt in your work. Next, I want to recommend one basic book about color. I recommend studying it first before trying to read others. It's Johannes Eaton's The Art of Color. The knowledge I have given you is a base, and you can develop it further and more by practicing. This will happen automatically now when you look at art objects, analyze their color and composition, and use this knowledge in your work. This is the end of my lecture. Thank you for your attention.